Hello, now today we're having a look at the Dragonmaid deck that popped up during our random deck wheel spin video a few days ago. It's pretty interesting, honestly. That video was the first time I had played it full stop. I've obviously since been testing it and playing it just to see if it's actually any good. I'm trying to place it somewhere between Dragonlink and Dragonmaid. It's somewhere in there. It feels more like a Dragonlink deck than a Dragonmaid deck, I'll give it that. However, the addition of the Dragonmaids sort of make me want to change how the end board works, and it's a little bit weird, but you'll see it in some of the gameplay, some examples of what I'm talking about, where maybe sometimes the Boral End Dragon, for example, isn't what you want to be going for. Maybe you want to be going for seals plus DPE sort of thing. It does definitely open up a lot more doors. It seems a lot more flexible than the raw Dragonlink deck. It seems to not have quite as many holes. Of course, you can customize it and build it however you want. You can put in the Chaos Dragon engine, which I think is a good addition and a good idea. We're not playing it right now because, you know, we're playing a bunch of wind monsters and earth and so on and so forth that don't quite synergize with Chaos Space as much as the pure versions do. There's a whole lot of different things you can do and a whole lot of niche things about the deck. We'll go through at the end, card for card, to sort of know exactly what we're talking about at the end, like we normally do. So if you like that sort of thing and you want to see it, stick around till the end. Look at the gameplay so you can sort of see what I mean about the differences in the play style, and let me know down below what sort of changes or additions you would make, whether or not you want a deck like this to feel more like Dragonmaids, sort of like slower control-ish, or you want it to seem more like the Turbo Dragonlink decks that have made their way onto the tier list. And of course, if you do like what you're seeing and you want to see any more, feel free to subscribe, like the video, why not? Doesn't cost you anything, and it does help me out. We're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber goal when everything changes. So I would appreciate the support, and like I said, it doesn't cost you anything. But yes, without further ado, let's get into game number one. Alrighty, getting into game number one here. We are going second, but we do have Nibiru in our hand, which is almost relevant. Our opponent is playing Branded Despia, which is rough, of course, being one of two tier 1 decks in the game at the minute. I believe Sword Soul is also tier 1 right now, this second. But this deck has been the sole tier 1 deck for quite a while. Now, it looks like they're actually playing the Thunder Dragon version, which is really cool. I'm a big fan of that version. Now, normally Lupine isn't a good target. What you need to do is you need to look and see what it banished as cost to see how effective your negate's going to be. So because he banished Thunder Dragon Hawk as cost, the actual benefit he gets from Hawk isn't that great, meaning he's banking on the one in his deck. So the Imperm here is a very solid target, whereas if he were to have banished Dark or a Roar from his hand, that would not have been a good impermanence because he would have gotten the full benefit of the combo anyway. But because it was a Hawk, we're not too worried about it. He does draw into the Branded Fusion here, so he's going to fusion summon out Lebellion, the Searing Dragon, which would also have been a good imperm target. He's playing Shadows too. A very weird deck here from our opponent. It's very cool. I like seeing things like this. Gonna shuffle back here to summon out the Mirror Jade as we were expecting. We did stop him from the very least going into a Colossus, which is nice. So we only really have to deal with the one interruption. Now, we do have quick launch here, so we have a couple of starters in our hand to get started here. We're going to go Tracer into Nocto Vision Dragon, then a Link off into Romulus, skipping the Striker Dragon step for now. We're going to go into it in just a moment. We're going to Nocto Vision Dragon here to draw one, and then we're going to search our deck for Dragon Ravine. Malicious, of course, not being the greatest of draws. We're going to normal summon the Black Metal Dragon going into Striker Dragon. This is of course going to search our deck for our Boot Sector launch as well as our Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. So again, another two cards in our hand here. The Boot Sector launch more often than not is simply used as discard fodder for our Dragon Ravine in most games, to be honest. But again, it's still an additional plus. We're going to send the Chamber to the graveyard. We didn't have any other really good targets. Revive the Tracer off of our Guard Dragon, and then it will pop the Guard Dragon spell card for the Tracer's effect. Summon out Pisty. Pisty revive Tracer once again, going into the Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. And we're going to check the top 5 cards of our deck here. We're going to add a light or a dark among them to our hand and mill the rest. So we're going to grab that Rokket Synchron there and send the rest to the graveyard. Then link 5 into the Boral End Dragon. Now this is very important because that Mirror Jade can get rid of the Boral End Dragon, but they cannot activate effects in response to the Borderland Dragon's effect activating. So we have the perfect out to it already. We're going to summon out our Chaos Ruler just as material to banish off of the Black Metal Dragon. This is why we milled the Chambermaid earlier in the duel, so that we could have the opportunity to summon it now. Of course, we can't summon the Shihao because we've locked ourselves in the dark earlier in the turn, but it gives us follow-up. So we're going to summon out the Ernest from the graveyard here off of Chamber's effect. Swing in, take out his Lupin. Lupin adds Hawk back to hand. Then we can take out his Mirror Jade here as well. He's going to activate the Mirror Jade. I don't think he realized we could attack multiple targets. We negate Mirror Jade, deal the damage, and then we've got exact lethal using our other monsters attacking him directly. At least I think we did. We had enough attack points on board to at least kill him. But yes, very straightforward. Summoning out your Borderland Dragon just like you would in any pure Dragonlink deck, but it also affords you the flexibility to also go into the likes of DPE, the likes of Xiao. For example, we would have used our 2 monsters there. Toward the end of the turn, we would have gone into either Seals or DPE, depending on what we needed to do. So we have plenty of options. Very strong sort of duel. Shows how we're getting past even top tier decks. You know, this duel is proof that it can compete. Not necessarily that it's top tier or anything like that, but it's at the very least a good enough deck to beat the best. So very good showing there. Let's get into game number 2. Already getting into game 2. We're going first this time, which is of course very good. Summoning out our Black Metal Dragon, which is the strongest starter in the deck. We're going to go into Striker Dragon, of course searching for both our Boot Sector launch as well as our Red Ice Darkness Metal Dragon. Very strong opening here. We have the materials, of course, to summon out the Red Ice Darkness Metal Dragon. Using its effect, we'll revive the Black Metal Dragon that was in our graveyard, summoning out Romulus. Romulus then will search our deck for Dragon Ravine, which is very good. Dragon Ravine will pitch the Boot Sector launch that we searched for to send the Parlor from deck to graveyard. We send Parlor because we have Hospitality to revive it, and because we also play Lore Power in our deck, we get to mill the Lore Power. Parlor then will send from deck to graveyard the Changeover, which we will now add to our hand, which will afford us the opportunity to fusion summon into the Xiao, which is an Omni Negate essentially with 3,500 attack points, which is again a really powerful boss monster. Quick launch is going to bring out our Tracer. We needed to do Changeover before Tracer because this locks us into dark for the rest of the turn. It opens up our Pisty and Striker Dragon plays. Now this is where I believe the deck divulges a little bit from Dragonlink. In this situation, you'll see in a minute, we have 2 main options. We can go into the Borderland Dragon, which of course is a very powerful card, or what we could do and probably should have done is we use our Romulus and Pisty to go into Seals, and then we use our Striker Dragons to go into into Predaplant Verte Anaconda to then summon out DPE. If that's at all possible. Actually, I don't even know if we could have gone into Seals because of Tracer. Yeah, we couldn't do Seals because of Tracer. But my point stands where this is the sort of point of divergence where this is where you break off and you potentially look at other plays. You've already got the Xiao. We, of course, decide the Borderland Dragon's going to be the best play. DPE might have been better, but we don't know. We've got the Crossout as well. Crossout means we at least have something. We're going to go Xiao to revive Parlor. Parlor mill from deck to graveyard the Tidying, which gives us essentially a monster reborn from grave. They're going to go Extravagance here, draw 2, that's fine. They're going to go Cursed Eldland, which we take that opportunity to negate its activation and destroy it off of Xiao, which is going to prevent them from searching their deck for cards, which is pretty important. They're just going to set 5 and pass to us, which is not great. It's a little bit intimidating. We don't know what we can do about this. We're going to summon out and thus then return to our hand the Lore Power from the graveyard, just giving us additional advantage. Top decking the Denier, again, not a good card. We're going to summon out Parlor yet again. That's when they're going to go for Compulsory Evacuation Device, taking out the Borderland Dragon. This is again one of those situations where DPE might have been a little bit better. But again, hindsight is 2020. What are you going to do? We're going to summon out Tin Heck here from the graveyard. But when we attack, they're going to go for the Scarlet Elixir. Going to summon out the Eldlich and then their Guardian, reducing our house to 0. We are able to take out the Guardian with the Tin Heck, but that doesn't grant us a lot of advantage. Summon Limit then is going to afford him the ability to stop our Tin Heck's ability to summon a monster from our hand, but our house is still going to take care of that Golden Lord. which again, we've all played against Eldlich. We know that that's not exactly the end of the world for this guy. He's going to be able to quite easily revive his monster. He's going to set a Quero here from his deck straight onto the field. Tidying, we're going to use it to summon out Parlor Mill, basically hoping to just set up a destruction going into the battle phase if he had something destroyable. He does not, unfortunately. He's going to take out the house. All we have now is a lore power on the field and not a lot of options. That Golden Lord cannot be destroyed. He's going to set a couple of elixirs here to his field for follow-up. So our opponent, unfortunately, has a whole ton of plays they can do. We didn't draw into anything uberly useful. We just summoned out the Parlor. At this point, we had sort of given up. And yeah, we scoop it up there. There's not really anything we could have done about that. Too many floodgates, too much power. That summon limit really does hurt this deck a lot. It doesn't have any built-in removal unless you're talking about its extra deck monsters, which you can't really access without being able to summon. Which is unfortunate, but you know what, that's life. This is a deck that's in the format. It's tier 3 at the minute, so if you're going into a ranked metagame and expecting not to find ranked decks from the tier list, then that's just, you're being silly at that point. You're setting yourself up for failure. So yes, but that sort of shows the divergence. I know I said about seals, you can't do seals because it's light, but the sort of dichotomy of what you can build into off of that sort of end board right before the Boral end step is sort of where Dragonmaid tends to veer away, and where you've got a few more options in this deck than you would another. For example, Masquerena might have been a good play there. I don't even think I've got Masquerena in the deck, but that's exactly what I'm saying. It might be worth investigating those options over the standard Dragonlink options. But anyway, let me get into game number 3. We'll get one more example of it, and then you can make your mind up as we go through the deck profile. Alrighty, getting into game 3 here. Again, yet another solid hand. We had the Boot Sector launch in our hand, which isn't exactly fantastic. We did misplay there slightly. We should have special summoned that off of Boot Sector launch, but not a massive deal. Go into Nocto Vision, summon out our Romulus. Romulus will search our deck for Dragon Ravine, and Nocto Vision will draw 1. Our opponent ashes the draw 1 for some reason, which I wouldn't recommend. If you're right there, I wouldn't ash a draw 1. I think that's silly. But whatever, it's fine. Dragon Ravine then comes out. We have the Tidying in hand, which, you know, is good both on the field and in the graveyard, so we don't mind ditching it. And we're also going to send the Chamber from deck to graveyard, so we can banish the Tidying to summon the Chamber from the grave. That then is going to search our deck for the Hospitality. Now we're going to link one into Guard Dragon Pisty, and here is where we make a bit of a mistake here. Hospitality revives the Chamber. We're going to go into the Striker Dragon now. Pisty is going to revive the Tracer. Tracer pop 1 into the Recharger. Synchro summon into the Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. Chaos Ruler is going to check the top 5 of the deck and add one of them from our deck to our hand. We hit the second Tidying there, which means we have a follow-up Monster Reborn, which is nice. We're going to go into the Boral End Dragon once again. Boral End plus an Imperm isn't the most threatening board in the world, but it's certainly not nothing. Until your opponent super polys you. Unfortunately, we're going up against the Shadows. They just had the perfect out in the super poly. Again, not a ton we could have done about that. We're going to chain the Tidying here before it gets banished in order to resurrect our Chamber once again, just so we can get searching and maybe potentially get some sort of follow-up. Chamber then on someone's going to search our deck for another card, but that is both of our Rokket Tracers banished. No more follow-up on that front. So even if we had our Boral End Dragon, it wouldn't be of any use to us. It's going to take out our Chamber here with the Window. Window limits us to 1 special summon per turn, but we do have the Imperm. So it's not the end of the world here, but we don't even need the Imperm to get rid of it, because we're simply going to summon the Parlor Dragonmaid. Parlor Dragonmaid, as you're aware, is going to mill a Dragonmaid card from deck to graveyard. We're going to send Lore Power. Now we're going to go into battle phase to summon the Lore Power from the graveyard, it being big enough to get over the window, and we're simply going to take it out. That way we can preserve our impermanence. We weren't going to be able to go for a crazy lethal play there because of the Maxi, but we do have the ability now to go into Changeover, which is fantastic, going into Xiao, giving us that Omni Negate here for our opponent's turn. So now we've got 2 forms of interruption, one of which being an Omni Negate, which is fantastic. We're going to special summon here from the graveyard one of our monsters. They go for the fusion spell here. We can't really afford for our opponent to be doing that, plus the fact that they're doing it in the standby phase affords us an additional opportunity to utilize the secondary effect of House Dragonmaid as well. So it might have been a premature negate, but it gives us additional advantage to be generated off of House Dragonmaid herself as well, summoning an additional parlor out to the field from the graveyard, which isn't a massive deal to us, but it is a little bit more advantage than we would have had. We're going to go Lebellion here. Perfect. We still have the Imperm from earlier in the duel, so it's good that we held on to it here. We're going to use the Imperm to negate the Lebellion and stop that fusion summon. Now, the Tragedy will unfortunately still get to search their deck for their Aliber, which is fine. It's not a massive deal. Lebellion then, of course, getting negated. Aliber's coming out to the field, and Aliber will search for Branded in Red. Of course it will. What else would it search for? And they're going to go for it straight off the bat. They're just shotgunning that Branded in Red right off there, banishing 2 to go into the Mirror Jade instead of the Chimera. Mirror Jade comes out, of course, able to use its effect to banish our House Dragonmaid, which is unfortunate. Opens us up to an awful lot of damage, but we're going to go Parlor, and we actually hit a time limit loss there. But ultimately, it wasn't winnable. He would have been able to use his monsters, take out both of ours. We had no follow-up because all of our follow-up had been eaten up and banished and things like that. But that Super Poly right off the bat, I know it's a bit of a daft one to show, but it's just very, very fragile. This is more a commentary on Dragonlink as a whole. I think Dragonlink as a whole is extremely fragile in that it loses to certain pieces of interruption very easily. Like, it's all well and good saying that a deck is good and can play through levels of interruption, but when it loses to certain pieces of interruption so hard, it becomes difficult to justify. For example, something as simple as Infinite Impermanence has such a detrimental impact on the Dragonlink deck because it can just negate the Borderland Dragon. It's that simple. And Super Poly, of course, is an even worse example, because even if we had gone God mode and had like a Borreload Savage Dragon or a Xiao or whatever on the field, it wouldn't have saved us, because it would have also fallen prey to the Super Poly. So do with that information as you will. I'm going to jump into the deck profile and we're going to talk a wee bit more about the deck. Alrighty, so here we have the deck profile. So it is essentially a deck. It's halfway between Dragonmaid and Dragonlink. It doesn't have a lot of the chaos aspects that a Dragonlink deck would have. It doesn't have like the Thunder Dragons or anything like that, so it's missing a lot of those turbo elements. But the Dragonmaids surprisingly add a very sturdy backbone to the deck, where it adds to the consistency a lot. Resource cycling is a lot easier as well, and it feels more consistent too, even though I'm playing it at 50 cards. So it's not that you're never ever gonna brick, but it feels more consistent than a regular Dragonlink deck. It just feels like it's not as powerful as that. So it's sort of like, it's an awkward middle ground between Dragonmaid and Dragonlink. I don't know if I would recommend this deck to anybody, but I think it's going to be an interesting deck for someone who's better than me at this type of thing to take this sort of idea and evolve it into something better. I'm just speaking this out into the world so someone can take it. It is similar to some Dragonmaid strategies that were posted on our Discord. I took them and modified them a little bit to incorporate some more sort of Dragonlink aspects with the Rockets and such. Maybe that wasn't a good idea, maybe their version's better. You can join the Discord, check their list and sort of make that judgment for yourself. This is just the version that I ended up playing. In terms of hand traps, just so we can sort of simplify what we're actually looking at, we're going to drop the double Maxi. We got the double Ash there. We've got the Call by the Grave. We got the Crossout Designator, double Infinite Impermanence, and the Nibiru, the Primal Being. I believe everything else is actually... We've got 40. You can drop every single hand traps and have exactly enough cards to play the deck. But this is it. So basically it separates into two main parts. You've got your Dragonlink, which is your Rockets and your Black Metal Dragon, and then your Dragonmaids, which is, well, your Dragonmaids, plus your DPE stuff. I would count being part of that engine as opposed to the Dragonlink. Now, your best starters in the deck, you've got a couple. Typically you're talking Black Metal Dragon, Typically, you're talking Black Metal Dragon or Chamber Dragonmaid as your two best starters. I think Black Metal Dragon is stronger because you basically normal summon Black Metal Dragon, use it as material to link summon into the Striker Dragon. Striker Dragon then searches Boot Sector Launch. Black Metal Dragon searches for your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. So that enables your full Dragon Ravine play then, because Red Eyes Darkness Metal comes out, revives one of your monsters, bang, instant Romulus search Ravine, and then you're just going to start scaling and snowballing off of that. So Black Metal Dragon's the strongest starter in the deck. But having things like Chamber Dragonmaid as a close second isn't bad, because it can search cards like your Changeover if you already have a decent hand, or it can search for Tidying, which is a very solid discard target off of your Ravine, because it can be banished from the graveyard to basically Monster Reborn one of your cards, which is pretty cool. So it adds a little bit of utility then to that combo. It makes it a wee bit more consistent. So I would say this is a pretty solid card. We've got the Rokket package, which is the 1 Rokket Synchron, double Tracer, and 1 Rokket Recharger. Just the variety and levels primarily, and having the level 4 ready to Synchro Summon is pretty much the only reason. And then the quick launch as well, being able to special summon your Rockets from your deck. Boot Sector Launch, being able to special summon them from your hand and graveyard. There's just a lot of utility, a lot of free summons around these guys, and their levels can be somewhat useful at times, so definitely a pretty cool package to have in. I don't think there's any issues there. In terms of our Dragonmaid package, we're running the triple Dragon Chambermaid, which is going to search your deck for a Dragonmaid spell or trap. Parlor, which is going to send a Dragonmaid card from deck to graveyard. Kitchen Dragonmaid, we're playing at 1. It will add from your deck to your hand a Dragonmaid monster, and then you'll have to send a Dragonmaid monster from your hand to the graveyard. So this is, I think, the weakest of them. Nurse, basically when summoned, will revive a level 4 lower Dragonmaid from your graveyard. So sometimes she's good on your first turn, mainly there to be summoned off of Heretic Seal. Then in terms of these spells and traps, we've got the triple Hospitality, which will special summon from your hand or graveyard a Dragonmaid, and then if possible mill a Dragonmaid card from the deck that has the same attribute. So if you summon Parlor or Kitchen off of Hospitality, then you'll mill Lorepar or Tink Heck accordingly. Changeover is your primary spell card. You can return a Dragonmaid monster on your field back to your hand to grab this card back from your graveyard, so it's recyclable, and that means that Parlor can also search for it as well, because Parlor sends it to the graveyard. Changeover returns Parlor to the hand to grab itself. So Changeover is highly searchable and allows you to fusion summon into some of your biggest and most powerful monsters. So very powerful card overall. You only need to run the 1 copy of it because it is so easily accessible. Then lastly, we've got the Tidying, which is 2 main effects. 1, while on the field, you can flip a face up, return one of your dragons to hand to return one of your opponent's card back to their hand. And while it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to essentially summon from the graveyard one of your Dragonmaids that are currently there. So it acts as an extender. Going first on your first turn, you can either set it as a bit of interruption for your opponent's turn, or you can discard it off of the likes of your Ravine in order to extend your combos and provide a little bit more utility to the combo overall, which is obviously very strong. Then the 3 big Dragonmaids, you've got Ernest, which is the most useful out of the 3. You can discard it to resurrect one of your level 4 lower Dragonmaids. Then the big 2 are mainly here for their levels and attributes. Their effects don't really do very much. So that's fine, that's your 3 big Dragonmaids, and that's the whole Dragonmaid package. Now the rest of the deck is primarily just extenders, so it is. So for example, your Noctovision Dragon summons itself whenever you summon a Dark Dragon monster, pretty straightforward. Your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon we've already talked about with the Black Metal Dragon combo. 1 for 1 just grabs you Black Metal Dragon. You've got the Fusion Destiny for your DPE package. We're running the Denier, Double Malicious, and the Fusion Destiny alongside your Verte Anaconda just to go into DPE. That's the only reason it's there, pure utility. Dragon Ravine, of course, searchable off of Romulus, very important card. Discard a card to to send from your deck to your graveyard one of your dragons, which is usually a very good way to get some of your combos started. Boot Sector Launch, searchable off of Striker Dragon. Normally it's just discarded for Ravine, so it's not too important itself, but whenever you do decide to use it, it basically just special summons a bunch of rockets from your hand. It's not too useful in this deck because we play quite a large deck and we don't play very many rockets, so it's not often that we have them in our hand. So I wouldn't worry too much about actually using this card, but it is good to discard at least, because it is very easily searchable as part of your core combo. World Legacy Guard Dragon basically acts as a monster reborn for a level 4 or lower dragon monster, and it also makes the Pisty combo a little bit easier, because you can use the Pisty combo without like a third link monster, because you can move it from one monster zone to another. So you just move it back a zone so that 2 monsters point to the same zone. Makes Pisty a wee bit easier to activate, but it's ultimately mainly just an extender in resurrecting one of your dragons. That's pretty much it. Totally, again, you don't have to play that card, you can cut it. And that pretty much covers the entire main deck. Honestly, it is a bit messy, it is, and it's going to be difficult to see. Would I recommend playing it exactly like this? I don't know. I would be hard pressed to recommend this. If you really wanted to play Dragonmaids, like if you were sitting down here and you were like, okay, well, Dragonmaids is what I want to be doing, well then I maybe wouldn't be playing the Rokket engine, because it sort of clutters it up. But if you were sitting down and thinking, okay, I want to play Dragonlink, but you still want to mix Dragonmaids in, I would maybe cut the Parlor, Kitchen, maybe not play Hospitality, and then sort of play it like this. I think this is fine. So you're running a much smaller Dragonmaid package, but you're running like the key aspects and core elements. You're running the ability to search your deck for your changeover and your tidying and things like that. You're still running your nurse for some follow-up off of your seals. So the package becomes a lot smaller, but by that same token, it becomes a little bit more concise and more accessible. So that's entirely up to you and how you want to run it. I'm just going to reload it here because I'm too lazy to rebuild it. You guys can do you in terms of what specifically you want. It depends on what you're sitting down and wanting to play. In terms of the extra deck, we've got the DPE, because of course we do. We have Xiao and House, which is part of a package deal. You basically fusion summon a Xiao. Xiao will return itself back to the extra deck and summon House in order to provide an Omni Negate. House then has a couple of effects where if anytime a monster, a Dragonmaid monster, is returned from your field back to your hand, you get to destroy one of your opponent's monsters, which makes it pretty decent for some follow-up and going second, although it's primarily here just to use the effect of Xiao. You might even want to bump this up to 2, just so you can summon this card multiple times, but that's fine. We've got the Borreload Savage Dragon for the Omni Negate. We've got the Chaos Ruler to be searching your deck here, searching the top 5 cards of them for a lighter dark. The Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss to be summoned using your Rokket Synchron as well as one of your level 8s. It's another very powerful boss monster. It's very good at sort of spot negation, because it has an Omni Negate effect in its effect essentially, where you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and negate it. So it's a very good way of dealing with very specific problematic boss monsters. Although this deck doesn't have as much hassle with them as others, so maybe this card's not too necessary, but that's up to you. We've got the Pisty for the primary combo, basically summoning back a dragon from your banished pile or graveyard. Striker Dragon for its utility with its arrow, with the ability to summon itself as a Link 1, and searching your boot sector launch. It's primarily here as just a toolbox card. Does a whole bunch of things for the deck. Seals will basically tribute itself to bounce one of your opponent's cards back to their hand, and when it tributes itself, it'll summon Nurse or another card from the deck, but mainly Nurse, in order to trigger off the effect of Nurse to resurrect another Dragonmaid. So basically, it tributes itself to bounce an opponent's card, and then you go what is basically +2 off of its effect as well, because it replaces itself, and then its replacement summons another monster, and that monster will almost always add another card to your hand. So you're essentially going +2 off of it, and your opponent's going -1. So really powerful card. Romulus searches Dragon Ravine, simple as that. Predaplant Verte Anaconda for your DPE, simple as that. Triple Burst Dragon, literally just here for its arrows, and the fact that it's a dark monster, that's it. Unicorn, very solid utility card overall, just very applicable in a number of different scenarios. And lastly, we have the Boral End Dragon, which is sort of like your boss monster for the deck. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, can't be targeted by either player but with monster effects either, which does make it a little bit difficult to remove. It's not impossible to remove because it's still targetable by spells and traps, and it's susceptible to non-targeting removal, for example Mirror Jade, or monsters like that. So it's not exactly impervious to removal, and you'll notice it more and more as you play. The fact that it seems a lot tougher than it actually is It does of course have an omni effect that cannot be responded to, so you target an opponent's monster, negate its effect permanently, and resurrect a Rokket monster. Now, the resurrection is not optional, so you have to have a Rokket monster in your graveyard for that effect to be usable, but your opponent can't respond to it, which makes it very powerful. So definitely don't count this card out, but I feel like there's been a lot more stock put into this card than is deserved. So I don't know, it's up to you whether or not you want to play it. I think at least having it in there is good, but to be honest, some of your other cards like Seals and DPE may actually be stronger options for boss monsters. But again, you tell me. Sorry for going bit of a lightning round there towards the end, but we've already covered off this deck for the most part. It was mainly just the differences with the Dragonmaid package I wanted to cover off. But yes, tell me down below what you think of it, whether or not you want to try it, any suggestions you have. Like I said, you can sort of separate it into two halves. If you want to play more of a Dragonmaid deck, cut the Rokket stuff. If you want to play if you want to play more Dragonlink stuff but don't want to cut the Dragonmaids completely, just cut down on the package by removing maybe the parlors and the kitchen, the big dragons, remove all of those things, and the hospitality. Narrows it down an awful lot, keeps it simple, keeps it focused on changeover tidying chamber, so you know exactly what you're getting into with that package instead of it being sort of all over the place. But this is sort of like the happy medium, so play this if you want, test it out, see if you like it. If you make any improvements to it over what I've done, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.